Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to YouTube News. Now, for those of you who are only watching this particular episode on this YouTube channel, unless it gets put back on the old one, you have no clue what I'm talking about. Many years ago, I came up with an idea for a program released on the greatness of YouTube, basically talking about world news, technology news, that sort of thing, and basically just keeping people informed. So, welcome to another episode of YouTube News, and there's some very interesting news recently. First of all, Sweden's civil defense minister has warned that his country could soon face the prospect of war and urged citizens to join voluntary defense organizations in preparation for a potential armed conflict. In a rousing speech that took note of his country's hotly anticipated accession to NATO this year and ongoing Russian aggression in Ukraine, Karl Oskar Bolin called on ordinary citizens to ask themselves, who are you if war comes? Speaking at Sweden's annual Folk och Försvar Society and Defence conference in Salem this past week, the minister said it is human to want to view life as you wish it was rather than it actually is. For a nation for whom peace has been a pleasant companion for almost 210 years, the idea that it is an immovable constant is conveniently close to hand. But taking comfort in this conclusion has become more dangerous than it has been for a very long time, Bolid said. Sweden has not been involved in an armed conflict since a brief war with neighbour Norway in 1814, as the latter sought to establish its own constitution and parliament. It stayed neutral during World War II. There could be a war in Sweden. The world is facing a security outlook with greater risks than at any time since the end of the Second World War, the Civil Defence Minister continued. Are you a private individual? Have you considered whether you have time to join a voluntary defence organisation? If not, get moving, he declared. It comes as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned that Vladimir Putin would not stop at Ukraine and would attack other neighbours unless allies joined forces to stop him. Putin won't finish this war until we all finish him together, Zelensky said during a news conference in Vilnius, adding Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia and Moldova may be next, if Ukraine did not withstand Russia's onslaught. The civil war in Sweden, of course, is also possibly slightly to do with terrorism, but we'll report more on that if more information comes in. In other news, missile attacks have twice damaged a Marshall Islands-flagged Greek-owned ship Tuesday in the Red Sea off the coast of Yemen, with a private security firm saying radio traffic suggested the vessel took on water after being struck. No group has claimed responsibility, but suspicion has fallen on Yemen's Houthi rebels, who have launched a number of such attacks targeting ships over Israel-born Hamas in the Gaza Strip. The first attack on the bulk carrier Larks happened off the port city of Hodeida in the southern Red Sea, near the Bab el-Mandeb Strait that links it to the Gulf of Aden. According to the British military's United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations Centre, the vessel sustained damage in the assault and later reported an impact in the water in close proximity to the vessel, the UKMTO said. The crew are reported safe and the vessel is proceeding to its next port of call. The private security firm Ambry said the vessel reported by radio of having sustained damage to the cargo hold and was taken on water. Late Tuesday night, the UKMTO reported that the Lark sustained further damage in a second missile attack near Mocha in the Bab el-Mandeb. The US military's Central Command also identified the targeted ship as the Larks, the vessel reportedly being headed to Fujairah in the United Arab Emirates. Greyhill's ship management of Piraeus, Greece, manages the Larks. A man who answered the phone at Greyhill declined to answer questions about the attack, and an emailed request for comment was not returned. Central Command separately said it destroyed 5 Houthi drones over the Red Sea amid the attacks. The Houthis did not immediately acknowledge the attack, though it can take the rebels hours or even days to claim their assaults. The Houthis have launched attacks on shipping in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden in recent months, demanding that Israel ends the war in Gaza, which has killed more than 36,000 Palestinians. The war began after Hamas-led militants attacked Israel on October 7th, killing around 1,200 people and taking around 250 hostages. The Houthi rebels have launched more than 50 attacks on shipping, seized one vessel, and sunk another since November, according to the United States Maritime Administration. Shipping through the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden has declined because of the threat. In recent weeks, the tempo of Houthi attacks has dropped, though the rebels have claimed shooting down US surveillance drones. Sorry. Yemen has been racked by conflict since the rebels seized the capital Sana'a in 2014. A Saudi-led coalition entered the war on the side of Yemen's exiled government in 2015, but the conflict has remained as a stalemate for years as Riyadh tries to reach a peace deal with the Houthis. Speaking Tuesday in Dubai, the Prime Minister of Yemen's exiled, internationally recognized government urged the world to see past the Houthis' claim of backing the Palestinians through their attacks. He said the Houthis' exploitation of a very just cause, such as the cause of our people in Palestine and what is happening in Gaza, is to escape the benefits of peace and lead us to a major complication that exists. Peace is a strategic choice. We must reach peace. The war must stop. This is a must. Our people need security and stability, and the region itself needs stability. Around the same area, a senior Israeli official has said he expects the war against Hamas in Gaza to continue for at least the rest of this year. We are expecting another 7 months of fighting, the Prime Minister's National Security Advisor Sachi Hanegbi told Israel's Kan Public Radio. He also said Israel's military had taken control of 70% of the buffer zone, 75% rather, of the buffer zone along the Gaza-Egypt border as it pressed ahead with an assault on the southern city of Rafah. Residents of Rafah, meanwhile, reported that there have been more Israeli airstrikes and that tanks have mounted raids in central and western areas before retreating. A senior WHO official also warned that Rafah's last hospital was barely functional and that a full incursion by Israeli troops could lead to its closure and a substantial number of deaths. The IDF said on Tuesday that troops were operating in a very targeted way against Hamas's remaining battalions in Rafah, from which more than 1 million Palestinians have fled over the past 3 weeks. The US government also said it did not believe a major ground operation was underway, which could trigger a change in its policy on military aid to Israel. Israel has insisted that it must take Rafah to achieve victory in the war, triggered by Hamas's unprecedented attack on the country on the 7th of October. At least 36,170 people have been killed across Gaza since the start of the conflict, according to the Hamas-run health ministry, which doesn't differentiate between fighters and non-combatants, by the way. The suggestion from Mr. Hanegbi, seen as a close confidant of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, that the conflict could go on for at least another 7 months will worry many in Israel and outside. There has been growing international pressure on Israeli leaders to outline a full strategy to end the fighting and a convincing post-war vision for the Palestinian territory. In his interview, Mr. Hanegbi also suggested that Israel would soon take full control of the Philadelphia corridor, a buffer zone only about 100 meters deep in parts, which runs along the Gaza side with a 13-kilometer border with Egypt. Inside Gaza, the IDF is now in control of 75% of the Philadelphia corridor, and I believe it would be in control of it all within time. The plan, he added, was to work with the Egyptians to ensure weapons smuggling is prevented. Residents have said that troops have seized about 9 kilometers of the Philadelphia corridor, including the Rafah border crossing, since the start of the ground operation in Rafah on the 6th of May. On Wednesday, residents told Reuters news agency that tanks advanced into western Tal al-Sultan and central Yibna and Shabura areas before pulling back towards positions on the border. Speaking of Hamas has said it has launched a big rocket attack on the Tel Aviv area of central Israel, 7 of which were intercepted by air defense systems, according to the Israeli military. Hours later, Palestinian health and civilian officials said dozens of Palestinians have been killed and injured in an Israeli strike on an area in southern Gaza city of Rafah, where displaced people were sheltering. In a statement, the Israel Defense Forces, the IDF, confirmed that they had carried out an airstrike on a Hamas compound in Rafah, where significant Hamas terrorists were operating. Acknowledging reports of civilian casualties from a fire ignited by the strike, the army said this incident was under review. And because this article is possibly a little old, there's been some recent developments in this. It seems one of the attacks that has caused problems was a very small and directed attack at a Hamas terrorist location, which happens to have ignited a munitions dump, which has caused quite a bit of damage and killed a number of people, civilian people. The Hamas attack on Tel Aviv, the first time in nearly 4 months that the group has attacked central Israel, came amid an ongoing Israeli military operation in Rafah, which was continued in defiance of a ruling from the UN's top court. The barrage of up to 8 rockets highlights the threat Hamas still poses to people across Israel, although there were no reports of injuries. It also illustrates the challenges the Israeli army faces as it moves further into southern Gaza to oust Hamas from what it calls its last major stronghold. The rocket attack came ahead of further ceasefire negotiations between Israel and Hamas, which are expected to resume next week. Most of the rockets landed in open areas, but photos published by Israeli media appear to show minor damage from shrapnel to a home in Herzliya, where an elderly woman lived with her caretaker. Police say 2 people suffered light injuries. And in Kfar Saba, north of Tel Aviv, a rocket fell on a field, creating a large crater. Later on Sunday, sirens also rang out in several border villages in the south adjacent to Gaza, including some where residents have returned to live since the Hamas attack on the 7th of October. Hamas did not confirm the rockets were launched from Rafah, where fighting has been reported near the Kuwaiti hospital. Despite intense international concern, Israel began its offensive in the southern Gaza city about 3 weeks ago, vowing to destroy what is said were the last Hamas battalions present there. But the latest rocket attacks are a reminder of Hamas's military capabilities after 7 months of an offensive Israel said aimed to eliminate the group. The UN says more than 800,000 Palestinians have fled Rafah, a city on Gaza's southern edge. About 1.5 million have been sheltered there from the fighting elsewhere in Gaza. And lastly, and a little close to home, 3 police officers were injured and 40 people have been arrested during a protest in Westminster on Tuesday night. 1 female officer was left with a serious facial injury after she was hit by a bottle thrown from the crowd, while 2 other officers suffered minor injuries. Metropolitan Police said the suspect who threw the bottle has not been identified yet, but investigations are ongoing. A protest organised by a coalition of groups, including the Palestine Solidarity Group, began at around 6 p.m. and was required to end by 8 p.m. The majority of the crowd, which was between 8 and 10,000 people, left Whitehall without incident. A group of around 500 people remained, and police began making a number of arrests for failing to comply. Police said that when some of the crowd resisted arrest, officers were required to use force to remove them. They added that a breakaway protest then took place, with the crowd marching to Bridge Street outside Westminster Station, where police cordons were erected to detain the group. A police statement said they entered the crowd shortly before 10 p.m. to arrest those suspected of leading the breakaway demonstration, with 40 people arrested for offences including breaking the Public Order Act, obstruction of a highway, and assaults of emergency workers. Around 2 a.m. on Wednesday morning, police said all protesters had left the area and Bridge Street had been reopened. Westminster's police posted footage on social media of officers identifying the ringleaders of the pro-Palestine demonstrators in order to detain and extract them. The clip posted on X showed police in riot gear charging into the crowd of demonstrators on Tuesday and splintering the group. Police and protesters can then be seen jostling in the streets at night. In another image posted online, officers are pictured standing shoulder to shoulder, blocking the activists from moving further along the road. I do apologise. In the wake of the incident, the body representing rank and file police in London renewed its call for every officer to be equipped with a taser upon their request. In the year ending March 2023, 40,330 assaults on police officers were recorded, an average of 110 per day, according to the Police Federation. Steve Hartshorn, national chairman of the Police Federation, said the high number of assaults on police officers is a concerning issue that cannot be swept under the carpet. Assaults on police officers are serious crimes and they should be treated as such, with the seriousness they deserve. The mayor's thoughts are with the 3 officers injured, particularly the officer who suffered a serious face injury, and wishes them all a speedy recovery. The mayor remains in close contact with police leaders about protests and vigils being held at the capital. The situation in Gaza is horrifying, and the mayor understands why so many feel passionately about the loss of so many innocent lives and want to make their voices heard. Lawful protest is a cornerstone of any democracy, but how it is done matters. The majority of those protesting last night did so peacefully and lawfully, but there is no place for criminality on our streets, and the mayor fully supports the police taking action against anyone breaking the law. We'll bring you more information on these arrests of the 40 or so people as they come in, and the possible condition of the 3 injured police officers, including the poor lady who took a bottle to the face. That's absolutely horrible. Other than that, I don't really have any more news to relate to you at the moment, but I intend to make a few more of these at various times in the future, as I usually used to do. One sideline. With regards to the pro-Palestinian protesters attacking the Met Police, that's funny. I mean, it's not funny, it's horrible, right? But it's funny in an ironic way, because the Metropolitan Police, as of late, seem to be more concerned with protecting the pro-Palestinian supporters rather than any other group of people or individual people within London. So for the pro-Palestinian supporters to then turn around and attack the police, I mean, biting the hand that feeds you is a term that comes to mind. Perhaps, just perhaps, this might be the necessary kick up the arse that the Met Police and other police forces around the country need to change their policy on the whole, let's protect the pro-Palestinian supporters, and actually give a damn about the regular people of this country, especially those who are in fear for their lives during these protests and demonstrations. For YNS, the YouTube News Service, this has been Diablo, and we'll see you again.